Hello. Today is June 25th, the year 2004. We're aboard the battleship New Jersey, which is docked in Camden, New Jersey, and we're right now in the Chief Petty Officer's Lounge aboard the ship. Today, I'm talking with Mr. Horace J. Banks, Sr. of Camden, New Jersey, who served aboard the USS Mason during World War II. His Navy enlistment period was from October 1943 through December 1945. He had the rank and rating of Motor Machinist Mate, 3rd class, and aboard ship he served as a diesel technician. My name is Dr. Tom Bennett. I'm from King University and the Battleship New Jersey Oral History Project. And today I'll be also working with Mr. Doug Buchanan, the Director of Education aboard the ship, who will be helping out with the questioning. First of all, Mr. Banks, thank you very much for talking with us today.
You're quite welcome.
Let's start off the conversation by asking, how did you get involved with the Battleship New Jersey? With the USS Mason, excuse me, with USS Mason.
Well, I went to, when I joined the Navy, through boot camp, Great Lakes, Illinois, went through boot camp, and those guys who came out of boot camp, what they did was, in the initial phases of trying to get blacks to integrate the Navy, and what they did, the guys who scored highest, the first 10% of the class usually wound up going to service school. And of course, that's the way you got to go to service school at that time. I don't know whether it's still like that or not.
And service school refers to what, please?
Service school is when they send the graduates of the training sessions. It's when you have a specific occupation that you are good at or can relate to. They send them to a school that deals in whatever that occupation might be. In my case, I was always a person interested in auto mechanics. I worked on engines. And of course, I had never worked on diesels, but the principle is very much the same. So I got to go to a naval training school at Hampton University, Hampton, Virginia. Well, it wasn't Hampton, it wasn't university then. It was Hampton Institute in Hampton, Virginia. And I went through engineering classes. And I learned about diesel engines, how to take them down, put them up, and what makes them tick. And I found it very interesting. And when my training period was over, and they had already picked me, or at least I didn't know this, but those people who had worked in the diesel engine field, they were needed aboard a ship in the USS Mason. This is the first formation of the crew as I knew it. So when we left, graduated from Hampton, from there we went to Squantum, Massachusetts, a naval air station. The ship wasn't quite finished, and I had to wait in the receiving station. And when word finally came through that we were needed aboard the ship, this is when I went aboard they transferred me from the receiving station to the ship. That was my first time I'd ever seen or heard of the USS Mason. Of course, I had heard that we were destined for this all-black ship. The crew members were the formation of the all-black crew.
If I can just take a step backward, what made you join the Navy? Were you reacting to Pearl Harbor? What was going through your mind to make you went to the Navy and into the military in particular?
Well, I was working I was a younger fellow then. I was working at Fort Dix. They were just building up Fort Dix. And I used to watch the Army recruits go out on their bivouacs. And these guys would leave like 5 o'clock in the morning, and say 5 in the afternoon, they'd be dragging back into camp. The guys muddy. And some of them had their shoes in their hand. I just made up my mind that, hey, I'll do anything to keep from going to the Army. So that was, so then I got a thing to enlist in the Navy. And I was fortunate to get exactly what I wanted. All I wanted to do was in order to duck the draft, I got a chance to enlist for the duration. That was it. That's how I started.
Let's take you back after your naval training. You heard about the Mason. You heard it was going to be a ship of all African Americans. What was your thinking at the time? Do you recall that when you first heard that you were going to go aboard a ship like this?
I really didn't think that much about it. I don't think I did. I can't imagine having any negative thoughts about going. Well, I had to go to the service anyway. And the Navy is what I chose. So I thought that, well, being that it's going to be in a black ship made up of, the crew was made up entirely of black petty officers, I thought that would be pretty neat. So I felt quite comfortable in it.
Did you feel unique in the Navy? Because the Navy at that time was quite segregated.
Well, it wasn't the norm. Let's put it like that. I think this was my thought. It wasn't a normal thing. And of course, I think it was a sort of elation in that the first at doing something, you know, and being a part of it. I thought it was quite interesting.
Now, tell me about your first experiences when you come aboard the Mason, which is a destroyer escort after all. It's not a large ship.
Right. Well, I'll tell you, I've never been on a ship in my life. And I don't think I've been, nothing more than a rowboat maybe. And when the ship first pulled out, we all pulled out from dock, the ship went out, and I think I was scared to death. I'd never been out on a ship where you out far enough and you can't see land and nothing. I know that was foreign to me. And I remember that I had my life jacket. We were all issued life jackets. I didn't go nowhere without my life jacket. No time. But after you're on it for about, I guess 4 or 5 weeks or so, most of the time the guys didn't know where their life jackets were. You know, so you become accustomed and you just fit in. It's like you had no fears at all. You know.
Talk to me a little bit about your duties aboard the ship, please.
Well, we had these big Packard engines, V16s, with, I guess it would say about 12, 14-inch piston sizes. You know. I think the engines had 4,200 horsepower each. We had 4. 2 in the forward engine room, 2 in the after engine room. I was in the forward. They assigned me the forward engine room. And you had your of course, they had gotten away from everything operated by hand. Everything was operated, mechanically. You had a board and a procedure for operation. Most of the stuff you did from the board, except for repair, of course. That was a hands-on thing. But that's generally the idea of how it worked.
Was the ship in good shape? It was a new ship.
Brand new ship, brand new. Never, matter of fact, the shakedown cruise. That was the initial thing. And after we were on the ship a while, and everybody got used to working on what they were supposed to work on. In my case, was the engine, and I got a big thrill out of being the guy who helped to control the speed of the ship. I found it quite fascinating. After we were in for a while, we'd have these training exercises. We'd have like 4 or 5 DE, destroyer escorts, at sea trying to fight, trying to locate enemy submarines. Of course, we would have the decoys, more or less. If there would be real submarines out of Groton, Connecticut, and we were off of Block Island, and we learned how to track and locate the submarines. Incidentally, the squadron we were in was for anti-submarine warfare. That was the name of the squadron. And the squadron was made up of DEs, some destroyers, and I think we had a light cruiser. And of course, the job was to escort convoys across the Atlantic during the course of the war. I think we made 8 round-trip crosses of the Atlantic. We went just about an hour aside. We were in ETO, that's a European theater of the operation. We went started out, I think our first trip was from Charleston. We had quite a few ships to escort. These were mostly merchant ships carrying supplies and ammunition from the U.S. And in its first case was from Charleston, South Carolina, Charleston Navy Yard. We went to on our first trip. We went to Plymouth, England, and that was the first of the trips that we made. We made quite a few trips. Let's say I think it was about 8 or 9. I don't remember exactly how the number, because it got to be an old hat after you did it a while, Because we did Africa, we did in the Straits of Gibraltar, going through the Gibraltar, you see the Rock of Gibraltar. We served in North Africa, Oran, Algiers, Mers el Kabir, places like that. And I think the first time we hit a storm, I can't remember the date. It was supposed to be the worst North Atlantic storm that had been seen for decades. And one of the experiences were that we were carrying this, we had another convoy. This was a very slow convoy, tugs and big mechanical equipment, this sort of thing, and merchant ships. And our top speed was like 5 knots. And in going to, we were on our way to Ireland. No, I'm sorry, Plymouth, England. And during the course of the storm, we lost a few of the barges, but it wasn't a case of enemy attack. It was the weather primarily. Or there's too numerous of things that I can't even speculate to think about at the time. All of them.
How did the destroyer escort Mason handle the rough seas?
Well, the ship was designed to take a 72-degree roll. I loved it because It was a speedy little thing, very maneuverable. And, oh, by the way, we were expendable. We were to protect. Our job was to protect convoy. We rode, we sailed in front and to the sides, the extremes of the convoy, so that the submarine couldn't penetrate our circle, if you will. And they called us the Lucky Mason. We never lost a man. We never lost anybody. I think the only injury that I can remember, somebody fell down and broke their arm, I believe, something like that. That's about it.
Did you ever run into any German submarines?
We had contacts. We never saw any. We once thought we had a contact, and doing regular cruising, and then when you went to battle stations at the general quarters, that's when every man had to make it to his battle station. And of course, my battle station was on the engines. And when the speed and all was controlled. And we ran, and I've always said this, we never had any proof or anything that it wasn't. And there was a lot of skepticism as to what we hit. I thought we hit a submarine. And when we hit it, whatever it was, we hit it, you could feel a momentary pause and you could feel the ship crawling over this thing, whatever it was. My station is below decks. We had saltwater circulating lines. And this thing we were crawling over must have hit one of the lines serving the water and the ship, minor thing. And water squirted out and squirted out. I remember it hit me in the face and I froze. That was the most excitement I think I had during the whole Navy, during my whole naval career. And we had a chief. He was old salt. I'd go anywhere with this guy. Never got excited about nothing. And I froze. I couldn't move. And I felt him tap me on the shoulder and point to the water, and I snapped out of it. But that was but funny after it was over. That was that. We talked about that a lot. You talked about Winnie Roberts. He was in the engine room, but his job was on the boilers. And he'd always credited me for saving his life, which isn't true. Because he let the pressure, well, he was not familiar with the boilers that much anyway. And the pressure built up. And the guys, him and his crew, him and his group, they were getting ready to abandon the engine room. So I was coming down and they were getting ready, and they were trying to get out. They were telling them to get out, that the thing is going to explode, and looked at it, and it was a simple thing. All they had to do was just release the pressure, and everything calmed down. It was funny, and Roberts talk about that today. He talks about it every time I see him. I saved his life. No, that wasn't true.
What was the attitude of the crew? Let's talk a little bit about the crew. What was the attitude of the crew towards the war itself? Do you recall that?
Well, the only thing, I think our worst experiences were with the segregation issue, not being allowed to go certain places, not being able to, well, feel like you were part of the Navy. In particular, I remember the Navy Yard in Charleston, South Carolina. When you pulled into the yard, the workers, all white, and water fountains were all over the yard. And where you saw a fountain, you saw two. One for white, one for colored. And what, amazing enough, they were side by side. One of our guys, I never will forget him, Amos Webster. When the ship docked, he jumped off the ship and ran over and drank out of one and then the other. And hollered back to the guys aboard the ship, said, "It all tastes the same to me." Well, that almost started a riot. So the skipper, he had us all just come aboard. But now they say that I don't remember this. They're telling me that these guys wanted to storm the ship, but I don't think that happened. But anyway, the story was that they was going to storm the ship, and the skipper said, "All hands man your battle station." Well, that did it. That broke up everything. And of course, the guy, I think that's a myth. I don't remember that as being such. You know, there's a lot of things that happened that I don't even remember. Like they talk about, we had a mascot, was a dog. I never saw that dog. I mean, whether it was a myth or whether it was true, I never saw him.
Any other examples of African American sailors in a largely all-white Navy that was segregated that you recall, that happened to stick in your mind?
Okay, and this happened in, I think it was Plymouth, England. We were in a squadron of ships. After every period of shore duty, they have like the USOs. They would give the sailors like a welcoming and included refreshments and all, you know. And we had more trouble with the white sailors than we had with anybody else, you know, because they didn't want to be, it seemed to me that we weren't a part of their group. You know, I think that's the thing that hurt me most, the thing that I thought about most. You know, we were in the same Navy, you know, and we were part of the same group that they were in. But that was, as I said, I chalked it up to experience. I forgot about it, you know.
What are some ways that the white sailors rejected you? Subtly, directly, or subtly?
Both. Because like they wouldn't let us, they didn't want us to be served with them. Like and that simple fare, like hot dogs and stuff like that, you know, the USO type of refreshments. They would, well, verbally abuse us for being in their company. But and one thing I thought about primarily, I thought we were a group of extraordinary guys, and that they never let it bother them. Not to a point where they wanted, and of course, now I'm not saying that we didn't want to fight them, but we managed to keep our cool, you know. I thought that was pretty neat. It reminds me of, like, for an illustration, they picked the right guy when they picked Jackie Robinson to break the color line in baseball. All the abuse that he took, and he he just went through it. And we pretty much did the same thing.
How about aboard ship? Aboard ship, the crew is all black.
Yeah.
And the officers were all white, except
Right.
for one black ensign came aboard the ship.
Well, see, we were supposed to have gotten more. Now, the first 13 officers in the Navy, 3 of them came from my boot camp company. The 13 of them. They all went to school together. I got a picture, and I don't think I have it, but I got a picture of all 13 of them. And I don't even remember. I do remember, but I can't think of the name of the guy who came to us. We were supposed to have gotten 2 more, but the war ended before they came aboard.
So you just then had one black officer. He was at Enlistment.
Enlistment, yes.
What was the relationship between the white officers and the black crew?
We did fine. As a matter of fact, the relationship was wonderful, except for one guy. When our skipper left, they sent another guy, he was our skipper. And he didn't like serving with black crew members. And he made his feelings known. Just to give you an illustration of what I mean, he tried to do the things that Blackford did. Blackford, he was the original skipper.
Captain Blackford.
He was quite a guy. Matter of fact, he was so good with the ship. Every other ship that moored or docked, they used tugs. You ever see a guy park a ship like he park a car? Blackford could do that. And everybody loved the guy. And I think he had a feeling that he had one of the best crews in the business. And just to make a point, when we would come stateside, we would have maneuvers. And the squadron would consist of DEs. They'd be like 4 or 5 DEs out maneuvering, And on our way inland into port, they had a race, always a race. The first one in. We won every time. And Blackford was quite proud of the fact that his crew members, they were a harmonious crew. It was like a rowing team. If you don't row together, it's not that cohesive. He's was there. I thought everybody loved the guy. He's quite a guy.
What are some ways that this captain showed that he liked working with the crew? How would he demonstrate that?
He was very liberal in allowing guys to. And amazing enough, I don't think I ever remember seeing that guy, that many people, period, together that there weren't always some screw ups, But everybody, it just worked out that we had a fantastic crew. And of course, one of the things that I've always said is, I don't know how true it is. Because everyone I knew was a graduate of a grade A service school. I don't think that's exactly true. They might have had a couple who weren't, but I've always thought that. And we did our training pretty much the same way throughout. It's quite a thing.
Was there any jealousy towards the crew of the Mason from the other ships?
That was always that. See, that was they were white. Yeah, the whites against the blacks. That was the thing. I think it was more. And our case was we wanted to prove, at least the feeling I had as a crew member. We wanted to prove that we were as good as anybody in the Navy. And of course, the Blackford and the other people, we were. As a matter of fact, I've heard it many times. We were the cream of the crop.
Did you ever get any responses from the other crew saying, "Gee, you did a good job"? When you would outrun them in training?
Never. And I'm just saying now, I'm saying never. I'm talking about the people that I came into contact with. I'm quite sure at some point there had to be somebody who was like not the regular norm, you know. It had to be.
At this time, from the white Navy personnel, was there any kindness shown to the crew, acceptance? Because you pointed out there was mostly rejection. And
well, you know, I tell you what, I do remember once we were tied up in Plymouth, and I had a 5-day leave. I wanted to go to London. Like I didn't know from nothing about directions or where, how, you know. I wanted to go to London, and I was going. I went to the station. I met this Norwegian sailor. He was very helpful. This was old hat to him, and he said, we will hang out together. And there's another U.S. sailor, white fellow. He joined us. Now, we got along fine. There were times, I'm not saying that everybody was like that. They were the people that I met. This one guy, he was a standout. He, of course, now this was just the three of us. And we went to London. This was like during the Blitz. And of course, I was amazed at the things that I encountered, like riding a subway. I never saw a subway that was so deep underground. You had to catch an elevator to go down the subway. And the elevators were, I'd say, half the size of this room, or maybe 3/4 the size of this room. I never saw going down. It was quite an experience.
How did other African American sailors who didn't serve on the Mason react when they react to you, to the crew?
They
in effect running a ship on your own.
Well, they were very I guess proud would be the thing, seeing that we were doing something that had been denied the blacks through the time frames, you know. Because a lot of guys didn't. Yeah, I know I wouldn't have liked it. The only thing being a servant, I didn't think I would like that. And this is what these guys were. Now, I'm not saying that they didn't serve it with distinction, the same as anything else. Yeah. There's a lot of guys. A lot of Navy personnel made big names for themselves being stewards or bakers or cooks. A lot of guys. And, of course, the most famous one, I think, was Murphy. He's the guy who was throwing eggs at the Japanese airplanes. Yeah. That's right.
Anything else that you want to talk about your experiences during the war on the Mason? Anything else I haven't asked about that you think is important for people to know?
Well, there's a lot. Oh, God, there were so many interesting things. I never forget this. We went to Morocco. We tied up there for like 5 or 6 days, and each day was like a regular job. At 4:30, you stop working, and you could go ashore. But however, they always maintain a duty section who manned the ship and of course they took turns. I met a little kid. He couldn't have been more than 13, 14. And I asked him something. Whatever, I can't remember how the conversation started. But he was very interested in the sailors. Because he was a businessman, though. Sell anything, buy anything, carry a roll of money around like he wouldn't believe. knowledge way beyond his years. He had a roll of money like this. And for some reason or other, he and I got along pretty good. He wanted to buy my Pico. I bought the Pico for like $6, $7 or something like that. And he wanted to give me 30. Hey, I sold it to him. From then on, we became excellent. He waited for me every day. Every day. He called me Jackson. That was my name to him. Jackson. He was the guy. Anything you wanted, he could get for you. Where he wanted to go, he would make sure you got there. And this kid, he was like 13. He was fascinating. He was exceptional. Like I said, anything he wanted, he could supply it like that.
What happened when the ship left Morocco? Do you know what happened to this young boy?
Yeah, that was his home. Oh, he was there. He met me every day. Yeah. I'll never forget him as long as I live.
What was his name?
I can't remember his name, but anyway, we used to call him. It was like a nickname, you know. As a matter of fact, I don't think I ever knew his real name. I don't think I remember asking. But we all call him by his nickname. This is what the nickname everybody called him. But he was quite a guy. That was about the highlight of my naval experience with this one kid. Of course, now we did have some other interesting places though. We went to Northern Ireland, Belfast. They treated us better than they treated the white sailors. They gave us a welcome that we would never forget. And just a wonderful time. Oh, and by the way, in 1995, a trip was arranged by the Irish government. We were the guests of the Irish government for 13 days. We only had like 6 or 7 sailors and their wives. And of course we had a newspaper man with us. And we just went to all over Ireland at the expense of the Irish government. That included airfare, hotels, food, you name it. And they treated us fantastically.
Why do you think the Irish treated you like this?
Well, this is where we went in one of those storms. We was supplying them with, you probably read the part in the book that says this storm was such that it split the deck of the ship. This was at a 5-knot convoy we had. We lost a lot of the, they got separated from the convoy. And during the period of getting there, the commandant ordered us back to sea to round up all of the strays. They welded the deck split. They welded under. Well, I'm below deck, and I know what's going on because it's right above me. And we went to, and we finally went, and 2 British frigates were ordered to go back with us. we got past the breakwater and ran into the storm. The British ship turned around and went back. And we continued on, and they repaired the deck. We went back, rounded up the strays, and brought them in. And that's just how they felt about us when we got back here. It's quite a thing. They made as a matter of fact, we got accommodation for that. The Navy, the Secretary of the Navy. And
any other outstanding experiences that you have from the war that you think are important to mention?
You know, as bad as I hated once I got into it in the Navy, I didn't know I was going to love it the way I did. I became fascinated with the Navy. Because when I got home, the first thing I wanted to do was, I wanted a boat. But then you start looking at prices, you forget about prices. That was a dream. That's all I had was a dream. I just forgot about the whole thing. But I didn't want no piece of boat, And that was one of the things that the Navy left me with. We went on my wife, she loved the cruise, so we went on a cruise a few times. Yeah. I'm trying to think of some other things that like going through the Straits of Gibraltar. Another time, we had some repairs to be made to the ship. It entailed us leaving the convoy, and we went to Azore Islands for repairs. And the interesting part of it was the Azores. They were neutral. It was common to be in a port where your enemy was right alongside of you, and of course I always felt uncomfortable being with the guys I'm fighting,
These were Germans, I think.
Yeah. But
did you talk with any of the Germans?
No.
Or go to any bars or anything with their?
No. Matter of fact, we didn't need the ship because we were there only there to get repairs. And I don't remember. I didn't communicate with them. Like I said, most of my time, if I was on duty, I was below decks. That was my station.
Once the war ends and you leave the Navy, how did your experiences on the Mason impact your later life?
Okay. I came home. I had dreams or thoughts of trying to find some way to make my diesel experience pay off. Like the tugboats all around in the area, they all had diesel engines, and I tried to get a job as a diesel mechanic on the tugboats. It just never seemed to work out. And the closest I came to that was going to a trucking company who had diesel engines. But instead I found that the drivers, they had a better lifestyle than the mechanics. Plus they made more money. So I started driving a truck. And I became a road driver for one of the major companies. And my territory was, I missed my kids growing up, I know that, from the job. A lot of them, I miss my kids growing up in that I'd be away from home like 4 or 5 days at a time. And my territory was east of the Mississippi. I'd leave home on Sunday night and I'd come back maybe Wednesday or Thursday. It was a good job. I liked it a lot, but I miss my family naturally. But it worked out well. My kids, when they were like talking about military, then it was all the draft, right? And I tried to talk my kids. I had 3 boys, 2 girls. No, 1 girl because my youngest daughter wasn't born yet. That's the daughter who's a lawyer. And what we did was, I missed them growing up because I'd be away from home with them. When I come home, I'd always find time for the boys and we'd go to ball games and that sort of thing. I spent a lot of time with them. I spent 35 years. I spent 35 years driving a truck. And when you drive 500 miles a day for 5 days a week, and for 46 weeks out of a year, that's a lot of miles. I retired in 1975. Well, my youngest daughter then, she was like, I guess she was like 60. She was like 12. And she was what my wife called a father's boy. She was a daddy's girl, you know, and I didn't go nowhere without her. And when I did have time with them, I spent a lot of time with my kids, and it worked out good. It was a good living, so I stayed.
Now, at this point, are there any questions I should have asked about your experiences aboard the Mason, or before, during, or after, but I didn't ask, that you'd like to speak to?
You know, I don't know. And it's amazing that this is not the first interview I've done. And they've all been pretty similar, you know. But I can't think of anything I missed. Well, yes, I can. I can think of a lot of things. I can't think of a lot of things. When I leave you, I'll naturally think of something else. That's what usually happens.
Doug, do you have any questions that you want to?
I have a couple of questions. One, did you ever think that people would be so interested in your experiences on the Mason and about the Mason?
Now,
what do you think about
that's the part that I should always talk about. Never thought about it. Like when I came out of the Navy, after 2 or 3 years, the Navy didn't exist as far as I was concerned, except for I'd always talk to my kids about joining the Navy. They didn't want no part of it. They didn't want no part of the Navy. Now my 3 boys, one Air Force, he spent 27 years in the Air Force. The other 2 guys were Army. My oldest daughter, she went into the Air Force, and I was ticked off when she did. She just come out of college the first. She went home a week, well, 2 weeks. She enlisted in the Air Force. She went in as a 2nd lieutenant. I was ticked off when she went in. And 4 years later, she came out as a captain. She had to do another 3 months to be a major. I was ticked off when she came out, you know. And this is a question you would ask. Like, I spent all this time. Like, I come home and I didn't want to. I had traveled so much in the Navy, I didn't want to travel no more. And what do? I get a job driving a truck. 500 miles a day, you know. And like I know the East Coast, I don't think there's any place I haven't been. I mean, I don't mean once or twice, several times over the course of my career. And but they say that everything came out for the best. Everything worked out nice. I lost my wife here, what's it been, 4 years ago. Because we were married December 7th, when we became engaged. And, well, we weren't, no, that's not true. Because we were engaged for like 4 years before we got married. Because I went to school together from 4th grade through high school. After she went to college, and we couldn't get married. We had to wait till she came out of school, and then we got married 4 years later. We came out of school in 1938. We got married in 41. And we were together for what, 50? Okay, can't remember how long I've been married. 56 years. And I'm just getting to a point now where I can deal with the fact that I'm by myself. Because the kids, and one good thing, all my kids live pretty near within my area, except now my oldest son, he died. He retired from the Air Force and he died in 1995. That's the year that we went to Ireland. Because he was, well, I didn't talk about, did I talk about when Clinton invited us to, that was
White House President Clinton.
Yeah,
why don't you talk about it? We have another 7 minutes on this tape.
Well, this is when they were getting this thing together, and I find out that we were going to be invited. Mary Pat Kelly, she was the person who wrote the book, Proudly They Served, or Proudly We Served. They served, that's right. And she got really tied into this thing. And doing her searching the past of the Mason, she ran across all the things that happened to us, and she decided to write the book. She wrote the book. The book was a success, and it appeared on public television. And during the 1995 Black History Month, Clinton invited the crew of the Mason and the Tuskegee Airmen to Washington. This is when I discovered that we were cited with all the recommendations that we didn't, by us, and I've always said this, we never got none of the recognition from, we were 51 years finding out that we had received citations. And they gave us this award or citation, Secretary of the Navy. And we all came to Washington, and they had this great big hall, Constitution Hall. They had the Mason crew on one side. This was a Black History Month. the Mason crew on one side, the Tuskegee Airmen on the other. Now, there must have been, I guess, a couple thousand people there. This is when I found out, or well, we found out that we got that we had the things, the credentials that we had are made during the war. Never knew anything about them. We didn't get the citation for 51 years after our separation from the Navy. Of course, you couldn't get angry about it because before you didn't know about it, you know. Of course, I was a little upset. Now, why would they wait that long to, give us what we should have gotten years ago?
So at the end of the war, then, did your ship crew have any citations?
Nothing. The only thing that bothers me most, I guess, see, like I said, I enlisted for the duration when the war was over. Then they didn't want me to go. They tried to talk me to staying in. I said, no, I'm not here. What they did was they put me in a group of decommissioning the ship. They kept me in for an additional 6 weeks. Means storing tools, storing all the things that were, and of course mothballing a lot of stuff that they could use. That was it.
By the way, what happened to the USS Mason?
They sold it for scrap iron, 1947.
So the ship was commissioned in
1943. Or 43. Yeah.
So it really had only about a year and a half of active service.
No, it wasn't, because I was on it for almost 2 years. It was more than that. But they didn't have, see, it had a purpose. It was like these throwaway cameras. You use it what you want to use it for, and then when you finish it, you throw it away, right? This is what the ship was designed in such a fashion that it was expendable. For instance, we were assigned anti-submarine warfare. If we were in a convoy and there were other ships, and we were supposed to take the hit for the other ships. But then too, it was difficult for them to hit, for a torpedo to hit our ship because the draft was such. It wasn't that low in the water. And it was so maneuverable. You can see this, you can see the fish coming, and you can usually duck it because it does. We had more, we could maneuver faster than it could. It was, I mean, that's one of the experiences that I found that I liked. The ship was speedy, could get out of the way, and it was fascinating. Of course, all these guys, all young guys, like speed, so, I worked for, 35 years. 35 years driving a truck. I retired in 1976.
And what's kept you in Camden when people are moving away?
Well, my wife, she wanted to move. At the time, my kids were in school, my daughters were in college. I didn't want to relocate because where I was, I didn't want to, where I had, my mortgage was so I could handle it, and I just chose to, and I was quite comfortable where I was, and I'm still there today. Of course, I live by myself now. And my daughter, she's they're real close to me. She only lives about 3 blocks from me.
As a longtime resident of Camden, do you see any positive changes taking place?
Yes,
today?
I'm part of it. We have a community group, PBCIP. That's a community group where we stress rehabbing and helping needy people. we renovate homes, sell them to people who with income that would fit the type of things that we do. We currently have a grant to rehab the Pearly building in front of the Camden High School, this big building. And we're going to do that. And this is going to be for senior citizens. And of course, what has helped us so much, my daughter, and she not only in addition to her law degree, she has a master's in science. And this is her field. She takes care of the legal. The legal part that allows you to go into that part of the business, you know, to make our group is, we have our CO1, 3C, the whole bit. And we do a lot of work in that area. And things are looking up. We have done, I think it's 18 homes now we have done. And people have moved into them, and it's a nice job. My son-in-law, he was the project director for Campbell's Field. And of course, I'm a baseball fan as well. And he was the project director for the construction, the renovation of the RCA, the Victor building. And this is what of course, now all my time, I've been associated with the YMCA. I tendered my resignation to the board of directors April the 1st this year. I was on the board for 25 years. I've been a Y member since I was 13. Yeah. And this is how I spend my life.
So some positive things are starting to happen in Camden.
Very. As a matter of fact, Kramer Hill section, that's the section in North Camden. They have the developer, they have a contract, I think, for like $1.5 billion. That'll build a whole bunch of stuff at that kind of price. And there's several other developments. Like there at 10th and State, there's a development there, a brand new home. They will rival the suburban area. And there's another Westfield Avenue. Pleasant, I'm trying to think of the name of it. Anyway, yes, that's the other. There's several of them. There's one right in this area, but that's a small one. That's only in about 2 square blocks. And of course, the Green Acres area, what we were involved with, PBCIP. We have a walk path that goes from Pine Point, that's the northernmost part of this section of the city. They have a bike path running parallel to Cooper River. And it's completed now all the way out to the high school, Camden High School. And I don't know, I spent most of my time, of course, I'm into sports. This is my hobby. Baseball, football, basketball. That's what I did. Okay. Now this is the first interview. This is when they found me. After I left the Navy. I left the Navy December 45. As a matter of fact, Christmas time on. And I didn't hear any more about the Mason until, well, 1995. And I wasn't looking for them, they were looking for me. And they found me around Christmas time. And this was the first interview that was done. This was when Clinton, what made this possible, the president invited the crew of the Mason to Washington during Black History Month of 1995. And they had quite a thing about the formation of the Mason, and included in the entourage at Constitution Hall in Washington. It had the President, Secretary of the Navy, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Colin Powell was at the time. No. Swahili. The Secretary of the Navy then was the with the guy with the long Polish name. Anyway, that's him. That's the guy. That's the guy. And him, and they had a lot of senators. Oh, and in the room they had the Tuskegee Airmen on one side of the room. The crew of the Mason was the other. And after this was over, the Newark Star Ledger from Newark, New Jersey, they called me and they wanted to come down and interview me. This is the result of the interview and the picture taking, you know.
Could we have permission to make a Xerox copy of that later on?
Yes, you may.
After a while, we'll make a copy before you read this.
Okay, and
by the way, may I ask you a question? They had the USS Mason crew lined up, and they had the Tuskegee Airmen lined up. Did you have a chance to talk with the Tuskegee Airmen and have any conversation with them about common experiences?
Yes, with a few of them, yes.
What do you recall what you talked about?
Well, I think the only thing that's ever fascinated me more about the Tuskegee Airmen, how they became famous, when they weren't allowed to go into combat. When they finally went into combat, was purely by accident. They finally got segments of the unit to fly escort duty for the bombers. The bombers, the pilots, they never lost a plane with these guys. Then they had the big bombing raids, and one of the pilots, they could pick their group who they wanted to escort them. And this guy wanted the Tuskegee Airmen. Well, all they knew was the planes with the red tail. They didn't know who they were. But
they didn't know they were black.
Yeah, they knew they were black. And this pilot said he wanted this group to escort him. And a lot of controversy. And he won a segment of it because he had guys to fly him, and they didn't lose a plane. Then everybody jumped on the bandwagon, and they had the big raids with and they had the whole Tuskegee Airmen. The Tuskegee Airmen, they never lost an airplane. That was the only thing that ever happened of that magnitude. That many bombers and that many planes, you know. They never lost a plane. And that, to me, was outrageous. Just ridiculous almost as far as, the importance of it. I was just fascinated with that. And this is what was the thing that I talked about.
What else do you have to show us?
And now this is the picture of the Mason as it first began. Well, this is the same as this. Incidentally, The little guy he's my grandson. He was with me when they were doing the interview, and they thought that it would be nice if they would stick him in there. He was 2 years old. So they put him in there. Now, this is the citation that we received. This was issued in 1944. This was done in 1944. And we didn't know anything about this until 1995, 51 years late. And it's in here. This is the commendation from Secretary of the Navy. Extolling the accomplishments of the crew of the Mason.
And when was that issued? Was it issued in 1945?
This was in it. This was all during our trip. This is when they found when Mary Pat Kelly, she was the author of the book Proudly They Served. And in searching the archives, she found this. Now, we had received the citation in 1944. We never saw it. I never knew anything about it until I saw it. And what's the other thing we had? Then we came back. We were invited to Newark, New Jersey, and up to Seton Hall University. And this was like a year or two later, and this was all part of Black History Month also. And after the sessions at Seton Hall, we went to the mayor's office. We were invited to the mayor's office in Newark, and he took pictures, and this was a result of, and they gave us medals. I think it's this one. Yeah. This is the one that can I hold it up with this? Okay.
And that was given to you by the mayor of Newark, Sharp James?
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. And then the county VA had a thing. Well, I don't remember what year it was. It's been fairly recent, like 3 or 4 years. For the people who participated in the liberation of France, they gave us a medal, and that is this one. That's this one. This is the liberation of France during World War II. Any questions? Okay. And after that, we were always invited to give talks. Of course, I had retired by this time, and I had a lot of time. And so it's just like the Philadelphia Board of Education. They have their own facility during their it's part of their educational process, a school that teaches television and stuff. They have their own cameras, their own technicians, and they did a thing. This is usually, most of these events happen on Black History Month. So, that was that. And then they got a, they were going to build another ship. And the president of our association would talk to the Navy about naming the ship after the USS Mason. They liked the idea. So they built the ship. That's the new one that they, and this is the new one. And this is a guided missile destroyer. Now, I would have loved to have been on this. I would. This has got more toys on it than you can imagine. I mean, devastating toys. Toys that are really mind-boggling. And everything's electronic. You press buttons. That's, to me, that would have been fascinating.
Were you involved in the commissioning of the ship?
Yes.
Oh, explain that.
Yeah. Oh, now, as the ship was being built, was built in Bath, Maine. We were invited to be a part of the keel laying ceremonies. We went to Bath, Maine. And like a year or so later, they launched it. And I decided that I would make a big deal out of it. My daughter, her two little kids, her husband, my oldest daughter, we rented a van and we went to Bath, Maine for 3 days for the launching. Good time. Really interesting. And after the launching, I guess it was a year or something later, then it was the commissioning. Now the commissioning, it's okay. Now this was part of the commissioning ceremonies. And the picture, the Florida newspapers, they did this story. And we were a part of it. And I think they showed us around the ship. And my little oldest, my little grandson was with me, and the skipper is with us, and we went to the mess hall. We had lunch. And this they were supposed to have been like 200 or 3,000 people there for the commissioning. At least 4,000 or 5,000, and it was quite a thing. We spent 3 days there, and I got a chance to go to, and we were Cape Canaveral, Florida, and it's not very far from, like 15 minutes to the Space Center. That's where I visited, all part of the tour. It was fascinating. And of course, and I guess I liked it more because I had my little grandson with me, and I made him a part of it, and he was really into it.